Good morning, Neil.
Morning.
Yeah, it's a bright morning just coming into Wolverhampton. Of course, thank you for taking time out.
That's all right.
I thought, we've known each other for a while. I knew you as more on business development.
Yep.
And then suddenly I saw this announcement. So business development for a law firm called FBC Manby Bowdler. And then I saw this news that actually you are now the chief. So from a business development perspective, so I was intrigued on how a non-lawyer was now leading one of the sort of biggest law firms in the region. And so whilst I was thinking about that and thinking, wow, that's quite an extraordinary leap, COVID hit us. So I thought, good grief, he's just become managing partner, no, what's the title?
Managing director.
Managing director of a law firm, a non-lawyer, and suddenly we hit COVID. And of course, we just launched the Business Influencer magazine.
Yeah.
So I immediately said to you, Neil, this is something you've got to have to write about. So to inform other lawyers of what you were going through, one as a newly appointed leader of an organisation, but to be appointed just as COVID hit us and all the implications. So I suppose, and of course on reflection now, a lot of people did read the article, particularly your peers, and said, wow, that's extraordinary. So I think a couple of things I wanted to chat for the podcast. One is how you overcame COVID and what we can learn from how you led an organisation. Secondly, how did you do it as you were just suddenly appointed? Because that's a task in itself. And then thirdly, later on, I'd like to look at how technology is changing both the way we work and the way we will work, particularly from a legal perspective. And of course, there's much debate at the moment about hybrid working.
Yep.
And for a law firm that tends to congregate in offices, what your views are on hybrid working.
Yeah.
And of course the next talent and talent acquisition. And so let's start from the top then.
Okay.
Back to what I said at the start was, how did somebody in business development end up leading a law firm? And is that a trend, do you think, that will happen in other law firms?
I was going to say I wasn't in the room, but I was in the room when the decision was made. So I guess I've been very lucky in my career. Yeah. So I did 20 years with NatWest, where I held a number of leadership roles, back office and sales orientated. Yeah. And that gave me an amazing grounding and fantastic experience. So when I moved here 6 years ago as sales director, whilst I came in to do the business development and to rebalance the firm and drive its commercial offering, I had this kit bag in terms of HR and technology that I'd picked up over the previous 20 years that I found in a law firm like FBC. Those skills I could put them to good use. Yeah. So over the time, I guess the role evolved from sales director to more of a commercial director, and then I guess right place, right time. Kim done an amazing job for 12 years, but 12 years as managing partner is a long old stint, and she wanted to get back to fee earning and spending more time with clients. Mm-hmm. And I'd learned an inordinate amount off her over the previous 2 years, and thankfully the partners trusted me when I put the plan together that said this is what we're going to do, and you're going to basically step away from the management of the law firm and let non-lawyers run it.
Yeah, it's a bit like in the hospitals you have the consultants and the people who run the hospitals. So there's of course, I won't say it, but there's always a natural tension between the practitioners and the non-practitioners, and what was extraordinary, because years and years ago, lawyers weren't even allowed to advertise. Yeah, they weren't even allowed to do that kind of commercial marketing. And here, and again, I was surprised when I started to hear about the firm in the Black Country. I thought, wow, they're marketing quite strongly, and you know, as a firm, you were marketing, and I think I said that to you a number of times. The brand was growing. As compared to just sitting back and letting the brand grow up by itself, it was certainly you were planting something. So I guess there was sort of a commercial thinking going behind the brand, which was very impressive at the time.
We had our budget set, and we knew things were going to get tight with COVID. So I suppose we reduced the marketing budget, but probably more so because events weren't happening. So agricultural shows that we'd normally go to, we didn't have to spend the money on them anymore. But rather than pocket that money, we pushed it into digital marketing, and just kept pushing the message that we're open. And I think marketing tends to be one of those spends that people get rid of first off, isn't it? It's the easy one to cut. But I've never believed that's the way you should go, and we carried on. I mean, it's worked wonders for us.
And do you think finally, with an environment where the professionals, lawyers, accountants, are now having to think that we are brands, and we are no longer just how good our work is, it's how we push brands. And of course, that was what makes you now the leader of this organisation, because now people realise it's the commercial and the branding side that's going to differentiate you from your...
Yeah, and that's right. Yeah, I think you have to understand that you are in a business. You're running a business, and you're in the business of selling legal services, and that's no different to if I'm in a manufacturing business selling widgets. You've got to be out there, and your brand is everything. And I look at some of my contemporaries across the country in different law firms, and they're doing a fantastic job. And I look at Edwards Accountants, who I don't even know them, but I look at what they're doing in terms of the brand profile that they've got across Birmingham, and it's fantastic. Brand and marketing very important.
So law firms are now having to make that change and having to think. So in terms of Brexit then, any implications for FBC? Were there anything, recruitment or international legal agreements or
Not
anything?
really.
Was there any implications?
I think the real implications are that the clients needed more help. So we were there assisting them with contracts that they might have had or employment issues. But in terms of a law firm that's regionally based that deals with SMEs, it wasn't really that much of an impact, and it almost just happened, didn't it? Because COVID was the number one issue, and Brexit came and went. And
so let's pick up COVID. Let's go back to where I started, which was you'd just been appointed.
Yep.
And COVID hit, and you'd just been appointed. What did you do next? So they suddenly said stay at home.
Yeah, well, we so the way it works here is we have an exec board, which is two of the equity partners and myself.
Okay.
And then we have an operations board, which is I've got a HR director, finance director, risk and compliance, and marketing. And so we have a plan. We had a 5-year plan of what we wanted to do. And whilst you've got the numbers side of it, we also had some of the things that we wanted to do. So we wanted to become more sustainable, drive down more, get to paper light if possible. We wanted an agile working environment, etc., etc. So, and that was in a 5-year plan. So when COVID hit, I think within about a week, we were ticking things off the plan, going, well, that's paper's gone, because now everybody's at home, and we don't print at home. So, and the courts adjusted from requiring paper bundles, so they moved to PDF.
Yeah.
So that helped. Everybody was suddenly working from home, and it wasn't an issue for us because we invested in, we continue to invest in technology. So everybody just lifted all their laptops up and went home. And whilst we'd never had 200 people working from home before, across the networks, we were confident it'd work, and it did. And performance of the firms carried on. I think what's different, I suppose, is that you haven't got the visibility. You didn't have the visibility, so it's not like you could just pop into an office and see lots of people because there wasn't anybody around. So we changed we we did restate the purpose of the business, what we're about. We spent a lot of time reassuring people that it was going to be, it was fine. We did rebase the financial plan, and then communicate, and be as upfront and honest with people as you possibly can be. And they understood that there are some decisions that you've got to make that you can't talk to them about until you make them, and not everyone is a nice decision. But
was it easier to push through change as a new leader during this period? Did that help? And the things you probably always wanted to do, suddenly you could accelerate?
Yeah. So if I think we were printing, when I took over, we were printing 250,000 sheets of paper a month, which is a lot.
It's a lot.
You know, it's not quite a forest, but it's a small wood. And so that we just started. I'd written the plan about how do we drive this down, but sitting there thinking this is going to take me a hell of a long time to drive this through. But in 5 years, we should be able to do this. And we're now probably doing 20,000.
Wow, big
a
difference.
month. It's a massive difference. So yes, that's a great example of where having COVID means it has helped you accelerate some of those plans. And similarly with agile working, my view, we measure people here on the output. It doesn't matter where you work, it doesn't matter what you wear, as long as you're doing your job. So I think that trust, and trusting that people were working from home, which is something in the legal sector doesn't really happen, because you record your time, so we know whether you're working or you're not working or whatever. To suddenly letting people go out of sight and stay out of sight was a big leap for some people, but it's worked brilliantly for us.
And as a new leader, how did you keep a sense check on what people were feeling at home? How did you get a sense? Because you were new to the role, so it was. One of the things I did. We were part of the Best Companies programme, which meant we were getting an annual survey in terms of staff engagement. And I moved that across to something called Engagement Multiplier, where we now ask staff every 90 days a range of questions that gives them the ability to tell us to see how engaged they are in terms of what we're doing, but also gave them a direct channel back to myself. So I will typically get about 800 bits of feedback every 90 days, and I read them all and I reply to them all. And then we intersperse that with how you're feeling. So a sort of a quick health and well-being. How you feeling today? Are you working at home? Do you feel safe? And that gave us a lot of sort of intelligence in terms of how people were. Did you even get the opportunity to address everyone when you became? Did you get that opportunity?
Yeah. So again, I think if you think back pre-COVID, to get everybody using Zoom. To get everybody together, it wasn't in the mindset. So you want to get the message out to everybody. You've only got email. To pull 200 people together so that you can have a bit of a conference, it's just not really that practical. So we implemented. We have quarterly all staff calls. And we get them all on Zoom. So we have 200 people on Zoom. They get a bit from the senior partner, so they do hear from the owners of the business, which is important. We use the breakout room function, so they get to mix with people that they just would never mix with, and then they get a sort of a sermon from myself, which tells them how things are going, and they get a Q&A at the end. So we've done it since the start of COVID, and it's here to stay. Everybody likes it.
You say it's here to stay. So what is the future of hybrid? And what are you going to do here? Are you going to allow people to continue to work from home, come in 2-3 days a week, or?
We are. So our policy that we wrote last year says that we want people in the office at least 2 days a week.
Yeah. Okay.
A couple of reasons for that. One is I do get a sense. I think if everybody worked from home all the time, then you could become a bit separated from the team.
Yeah.
So I don't want that happening. Partly is health and well-being.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to catch up with colleagues. And then for the junior members of the team, it's all about supervision. And supervision, whilst we've been able to do it over Zoom and phone, nothing beats sitting next to you.
I was going to say with new graduates and new people coming, they need that, don't they?
They do. And unfortunately for one of our apprentices, we basically had to stall her apprenticeship for a year because we weren't able to give her the support that she needed. But she's back and she's doing brilliantly now. So we're saying a couple of days a week, but different teams have different needs. So really, it's down to the team leaders to decide what they want to do with their teams, and it almost left the decision with them. It's not broke, so why do you want to go and change it? I suppose is my thought pattern at the minute.
How do you avoid just looking at workforce? I mean, you can spot someone sitting here if they're going to sit here till 12 o'clock midnight. You'd spot them.
Yeah.
But how would you avoid burnout for people who are working from home? How do you know they're not burning the midnight oil? Well, because it is a problem, isn't it, in the law profession? A lot of burnout and
it is. I suppose what's changed here because the offices. So we've always remained open, but we've always had a rota. So the offices are always open at 8, but they're always shut at 6 now because the people that lock up go home. Yeah. So that's helped because it's pushed people out of the building, and then I'm very pro having a balanced life because that's what I do. So I think everybody should do it. The fee earners do record their time, so it's easy for me to spot if somebody's doing 12-hour days. Okay. Because it's all recorded and I can see what's what. And then we will put interventions in with those people and make sure you understand why. Is it just because they're on a pressing matter and it needs a lot of urgent attention, or does it look like this is a bit of a long-term trend and actually we need to put more resource in there to support them? So conveyancing would be a great example where the stamp duty, land tax got altered, which created a massive push on moving houses. And they were just working all hours to get houses across the line before the end of June, and now before the end of September, and then hopefully they'll get a break.
So really, because the way you're set up with billing, you can tell if someone's putting too much time. It's quite an easy way of finding out. Yeah.
And then we have a quite a robust one-to-one process. So I speak to every team leader once a month. So we've got 30 team leaders. So I spend at least half an hour with every one of them, and that's doing we talk about the numbers, but mainly we talk about the people, and making sure that they're all right. And it'll be talking about what can I see coming through the number. This person's working a bit longer. What's that all about? And likewise, those team leaders will have pretty much daily check-ins, I guess, with their team members.
Just looking at the role of tech, I know we're going to pick that up a bit later on as well. Obviously, through COVID, we all had to adjust, and we heard about the courts now saying you can do it by video and by phone calls. And was that something easy for you to all pick up? Because I know you talked about investment in tech anyway. Was that easy for you to pick up? And how did you find perhaps the older members of the judges and the clerks who said, I remember that funny thing was in the US where somebody's persona came on as a cat or something.
Yeah.
That was a court case. Was it?
It was a court case.
Wasn't it? So there's an example of a lawyer that couldn't get his.
Yeah, I think. So it wasn't a question of can you adapt. It was you had to adapt, and it was how quick could you do it. So our family team, in particular, their hearings all continued. The family court continued, but they were all done via video conferencing. The difficulty, if there was any difficulty, really was they were all moving on different platforms. So everybody, I guess we went Zoom. Yeah. But then the courts went Teams.
Yeah.
So you train everyone on Zoom, you've got to train everyone in Teams, and of course the settings on the computers change. But if you, I think if you still go into our Talford office, because the hearings are still remote, one room is pretty much a courtroom, and watching them in action, it's an art. Where you've got the judge on one screen, you've got you've got your client sat next to you or on another screen, and then you've got the other side, and of course you can't. It is very difficult, and because body language is missing a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
And how they do it for 7 hours a day is extraordinary. Yeah, and they'll be doing 3-4 day hearings. It's incredible. So, but it helped people progress with what was important in their life, and it's worked well. And now we've got setups in all the offices. So every office now has. So Wolverhampton's got a proper video conferencing suite. So it will carry on. I dare say.
Looking at generally from a competition perspective. There's a lot of mergers now going on, a lot of consolidation. I've seen people snapping up law firms and accountant firms. And do you think that's here to stay? And do you think that makes people like you more likely now to lead law firms because of the sort of competitive pressure, rather than, as in the past, used to be one of the partners who would lead the firm? Is it because this real increasing? And I say that simply because this speed of communication now, because of email and everything, people want things quicker.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of operators in the marketplace, then suddenly being different is difficult. And thirdly, and I could be wrong here, you have to correct me, loyalty amongst clients is no longer what it used to be. And is that one of your sort of big challenges as a leader of a law firm, is how to stay consistent, how to stay profitable, how to stay above the competition, and how to retain staff and yet deal with pricing and all of that?
All of it. So we acquired 3 firms just pre-COVID. In fact, the last firm we bought was in January, just before March the 23rd.
Yeah.
So that activity died off a little bit, but you're right, you are seeing more of it now. There's more consolidation again, and it will continue. It's inevitable. There are 16,000 law firms in the UK. So you're right. I guess if you're running a law firm commercially, you're looking for economies of scale all the time.
Yeah.
If you've got what we've got in terms of a great back office infrastructure, technology platform that is scalable, why would you not go and look for opportunities with other businesses where you can add fee earners in and income in without really having to add much overhead in? So that will continue. There are other pressures in the legal market as well, so professional indemnity insurance, where the number of providers is shrinking, the premiums are increasing, and that will inevitably create pressures in some law firms, and then you'll see more mergers and acquisitions happen.
So what's your biggest challenge? What keeps you awake at night?
What keeps me awake at night is making sure that everybody in this business is happy. They are happy and they're supported. So I know it is a couple of hundred people, but we are a very close knit firm. And you worry about all of them, and I'm incredibly proud of all of them and everything they do every day. And I've always believed that if you've got very engaged people in your business, they will look after your clients, and your clients will then come back. And you asked about client loyalty. 80% of what we do is repeat business. So we're very, very loyal clients, and they and we've got commercial clients that will then move into private clients, so they'll do their wills and their trusts. so our challenge, and it's like, I guess it's every business's challenge, is making sure that those clients come back to us each and every time they've got a legal issue that needs dealing with. I don't want them coming for me for their will and then going somewhere else to do some commercial work. And that's what we've got to get better at, is just spotting those opportunities. We have a head of new business, and her role is to make sure that we're getting the most out of the existing clients we've got.
At the moment, well, certainly during the last 18 months, diversity and inclusion is a major topic.
Yep.
I suppose you're an example of that, the fact that they've got somebody totally different at the helm, totally different. So it's quite diverse. It's quite an interesting way of doing things, and it'll be interesting how that starts to pervade across the rest of the sector. And as the competitive issues increase, there'll be more Neil Lloyds running, more law practices. So, is that something that plays on your mind, or is it important to you? And if so, what sort of steps are you taking in place?
So it's something you're very, very aware of. So diversity and inclusion is extremely important for us. I think it's important that we represent the communities that we serve. Interestingly here, so 70% of the staff here are female, which is different to most law firms. The challenge I've got is to make sure that 70% keeps going up as you go up the promotional ranks. You keep it
leadership.
Keep the leadership at that level. But there are trends coming through in sort of the younger generation that we need to be aware of. So I just went on spent half a day looking at gender and how gender is now different to sexuality, and you've got people now that don't relate to whether they're male or female, they're non-binary, and so it's being alive to all of that, and making sure that as a law firm we're open and embracing those people that have got can bring something different to the firm and a different perspective.
I think leaders have to be more aware of what's going on around them than they've ever had to do. So they've had to now think about how the world moves around them rather than just concentrate on the operational day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
So a lot more sort of environmental scanning going on, and
and I think when you've got someone like myself that isn't, I'm not. I've got a will, I've moved house, so that's about the extent of my legal knowledge. So I can spend that time, and that's one of the beauties of having a non-lawyer running a law firm, is that I've got the time to do that. But if you're a practicing lawyer, your client is always going to come first. They've got to. So are you really going to have enough time to go and spend looking at those trends? I spend a lot of time talking to other managing partners across the country to see what they're, what are they doing, what are they seeing in their neck of the woods. And I've got the time to do it, which is great.
And is one of those threats, when you look at in the environment, cyber risk, that's got to be a major threat to you.
Yeah, it is. The more and more, certainly during the pandemic, you saw more reporting of it in the legal press. But it was stuff that we were seeing in banking. 15 years ago, that invoices being caught, bank details changed, invoice coming on. So again, having that experience and go, right, I've seen this. We saw this 15 years ago in banking, and you can see how the fraudsters are moving from sector to sector, and that's it's why you spend a lot of money on your technology and getting it right, and putting the security around it is very important. And we've just renewed our Cyber Essentials. We'll do Cyber Essentials Plus, and we'll get through that. But it's very important.
Well, staying on the technology theme, did I see? Well, I participated, so I did see. So what's this tech timeout, which I find extraordinary, really?
Yeah.
And I'll let you explain this. And And I'll tell you why I found it. You'll know anyway. But go on. So you came up with the concept, and I'll tell you why it was interesting, because let me just give you some figures.
Yeah.
Average mental distress of people getting really worked up has gone up by 8.1%,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and largely amongst young people and women. Protectivity, I better get that right. It's an insurance company. They did some research, and they found in the legal sector it's getting worse.
Yep.
63% showed signs of daily stress, and by the way, it's the second highest sector in the country.
Yeah.
In 1920, so this was before COVID, the year 19 and 20, 18 million days lost, generally speaking, through depression and anxiety. So it's a big key issue. And of course, staying in front of screens all day can't help that.
No.
So you came up with something, and then I'll quiz you about it. Something called Tech Time Out, wasn't it? Tech.
Yeah.
Is that right? Is that right? I participated. I did take an hour. I had some tea and s'mores. Actually, it was a great excuse. So perhaps you can explain, as a legal firm, how you said actually take time out from technology, which is astonishing because of what's going on. So perhaps you can explain that.
Yeah. So I guess one of the trends that we spotted during the pandemic was that people weren't commuting. So they were waking up. They're going on their phones in the morning, then they were logging on their laptops, and then they come off their laptops and go on their iPads and look at their personal stuff, and they probably watch a bit of Netflix or Amazon, and then they go to bed, then they wake up, they start work again. And because people don't have that commute, you didn't get that break, so that was adding a couple more hours. So you're right, health and well-being, any law firm that doesn't have a health and well-being strategy at the core of what they're doing is missing a trick, and those statistics are right and backed up by Law Care, who are one of the charities that we work with. So Tech Time Out is all about helping people have a healthier relationship with their technology, and encouraging people to have consistent time away from it. So I'm obviously biased, but I will make sure that every day I have time away from technology, and that might be doing some running, it might be putting the phone away when you're cooking or when you're eating dinner, so we launched it last year. We've now got clients everywhere, and some law firms, accountancies, energy companies, big call centres, and it complements what they're doing, or what other services they're providing, and then we've just got we're on our second client in the US, because it is a big issue.
Well, I can vouch you definitely do things outside of take time out. We just spent a few minutes chatting about, before we went on film, about your running and the shoes you wear and all the places you run. So you're obviously leading from the front. Of course, I find it quite sickening to watch it, because it's making me feel really, really slow and nowhere as good as what you're doing. But so you're leading from the front. You're saying, look, this is me running outside of work, staying fit, mental well-being.
Well, there are a lot. There are simple things that you can put in place. So I won't send emails after 5 o'clock. I might write them, but I'll time them so they don't go into the next. So I don't want the team here working past 5, half 5, or if they don't have to. Obviously, if there's an important client matter, then they've got to. But if they've got a choice, I'd rather they were at home with the families or out walking the dog or whatever. So there's some business stuff that you can do. My diary is time blocked, so I've got a block of time when I'm working, and then I've got family, or I'm running, and I'll happily encourage people to go running and do some exercise during the day at a time that suits them. So if they've got an hour in their diary between 11 and 12, then go and do what you want to do. Don't sit there thinking you've got to sit there in front of your computer, because that's what's expected.
But that's not the way traditionally we've been brought up, to do that 11 till 12. Go on.
No, but you are. But the science is there to say that actually, if I do take So if I work for 45 minutes and take a 15-minute break,
Yeah.
the following 45 minutes I will be more productive
Yeah.
than I was if I just carried on working through.
Yeah.
And that can make a massive difference. I was working from home yesterday and probably had one of the most productive days I've had in a while, and I noticed it was because I was taking sort of 5-10 minute breaks to do something different and then come back and I'm still probably working at 6:30, but
my problem is those 15 minutes involves biscuits and tea, so that's anyway.
I've had to cut biscuits and tea out for the well, not the tea, but the biscuits have certainly gone out of the household.
Right, a couple of questions before we finish off. Just continue the theme then about tech and your sort of quest to make sure that people take time off the screens. One of the threats to the legal profession is the adoption of tech.
Yep.
The fact that now some of the intricate paperwork can be standardised and done through tech. You need less people. So an example is the spreadsheet, which developed from just cost sheets, became spreadsheets, and now you have it all off on the cloud. Invoicing can be done off the cloud. Is there a chance that sometime in the future everything can be done through a bot, and in fact you're left with only a few people running the really difficult cases? Could technology replace a substantial part of a lawyer's work? Some of the routine conveyancing stuff I'm thinking of, contracts and things that...
Theoretically it could. We deploy a lot of technology here. So we put speech recognition in 4 years ago. So prior to that, you would have dictated, your secretary would have typed it up. Now the robot dictates it in 30 seconds, and the accuracy is outstanding. So we've got less back office support than we would have had 5 years ago. We are a lot of the technology we put in place in here. It's what we call workflow driven. So I could technically probably go and do a piece of run a workflow because it's a process. You hear lawyers in here describe themselves as project managers. Start
to finish of a
so I think there will be elements of law, like say you can put a standard contract into a machine now and it'll tell you what clauses are different. We've got a piece of technology where we can put in we can put a contract in and the other side can put the same, you've altered it, and it'll pull out all the differences and tell you whether does it really matter that they've changed this and to a them or whatever. So it's more prevalent. It's becoming more affordable. And so probably 3 years ago when you sat in front of people saying, well, AI is going to take over the world, and you think, well, that's never going to come to Wolverhampton. We've probably got a significant amount of AI that's in here at the minute. We probably just don't realise that it's not called AI, but it is in here. But I always come back to people like to deal with people.
So there's no chance of two robots negotiating a deal for a house or a big commercial project. In other words, they spot what, and then they've machine learned that actually this is optimum value.
I still think you're always going to need a bit of human input along the way.
Okay. So the future for lawyers is still bright.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
Okay.
Hope so.
Yeah. So it's a final comment, and then I'm going to finish with a couple of questions. We talked about tech timeout, and yet we've just spoken about the increasing prevalence of technology.
Yeah.
The increasing prevalence not only between lawyers talking to each other using technology, not only between projects, and I love that actually lawyers are now project managers because they start and finish. We've talked about technology now allowing you to do things quicker because you don't need that back office.
Yeah.
Machine learning means they can spot mistakes quicker. We've now got clients, next generation, for whom technology is part of their DNA, and they'd rather text you something than ring you. So they don't need people. Actually, they don't need people to talk to. They're quite happy to just work off their machine and just.
Yep.
So increasingly more and more tech, and yet you just said a few minutes ago, hold on, we need to take time out from tech. So could that impair a productivity? Is there a productivity issue?
I think what I'm saying with Tech Time Out is it's about having a healthier relationship with technology. So it's about having a balance.
Yeah.
Using tech for good, I suppose. Yeah. So if you're right. If you look at so here in conveyancing, so our clients have an app.
Yeah.
So they can look on the app. It's updated from the systems in here. It tells them what stage is at. That for me is using technology for good, because they can look at it at a glance. They're not having to wait. They're not ringing in. They're not worrying about what's happening, because they can see what's happening. Yeah. They can go and do something else. Equally, if you want to start, your divorce now, you can do that through our website. Start it online at a time that suits you. Because a lot of our clients are very busy during the day, and there's a lot of form filling that needs to happen. So they can start it when they want to start it. We've then got half the information. That means we're not taking up your time to get that information. It means we're not charging you to get that information. That is technology being used for good. And with that, then the spare time that's generated, you can go and do something that's is different and away from the screens.
So productivity goes up. More productivity, more sales, more projects get finished. People do it their own time.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So, 3 last questions, very quick ones, and they're very, very quick ones. 3 tips for leaders then. What tips would you give? Your 3 tips if you're a leader of an organisation. I mean, you've got 200 odd people here, so it's not a small operation.
So I think what we've done, or what I'd say is, make sure you're really clear on the purpose. Why does your business exist? We spend a lot of time looking at what our purpose is, redefining it, communicating it, making sure everybody understands it, and then motivating them and inspiring them to go on and deliver that, or deliver for the clients, which will ultimately deliver the purpose. And then I guess a lot of my role is overseeing the delivery of the services. So I've got hands in lots of pies, but at a level. So I tend not to get into the detail.
Okay.
But that means I can look at how many files are being opened today, and is that up at the run rate or not? If not, I can go and ask a question. It's having that information at your fingertips. So I think for me, it's making sure you've got a purpose, motivate and inspire the people to buy into it, and then keep on top of the delivery of it. And if you can do that, then I think you'll have a successful business.
What sort of 3 things do you look for? I know it's been interesting now with the technology. What 3 things do you look for when you recruit?
Yeah, so I think in the legal sector, there's everything works on PQE, so post qualification.
Yeah.
So if you're interviewing somebody who's 8 years PQE, then there's an assumed technical knowledge. So I think I'm always looking for what's the positive attitude, can-do attitude. I'm looking for enthusiasm, passion, and ambition. What
Interesting.
people want to achieve.
All 3 things that are not IQ based. Isn't that extraordinary? Because you've assumed the IQ's there.
Yeah.
You've assumed the IQ's there, so you're now focusing on the EQ.
But so going off piece a little bit, Tech Time Out works with the Kickstarter program. So we've got 6 Kickstarters in 16 to 24-year-olds that have come through the government scheme, struggled to get into work.
Yeah.
They're brilliant. If they've got the right attitude, you can train them, and I've always believed that as well. Honestly, if you've got a positive attitude, you can pick things up. Enthusiasm, passion, ambition.
Final question: 3 tips for a leader to ensure they've got the right culture. How do you make sure you got the right culture? That's the final question.
Yeah. So I think as a leader, you set the culture.
Yeah.
It's no good me sitting here saying you need to get a balance with technology and then emailing everybody at 8 o'clock at night. So I think it's very important that you set it, and that you live it. I think you have to look at the leadership team that are around you. My job is to grow that leadership team and develop them. almost to a point where you become redundant, because the business should be able to run without it. So and then reinforcing it when you're speaking to the staff, as I do on a daily basis, making sure the messages are consistent, and if the coach says X, it means the conversations need to say X all the way through, and you don't deviate. So yeah, that would be my top tips.
Well, listen, Neil, it's been fantastic. We've covered a range of topics, particularly around culture, leadership, how the legal sector is changing, the role of culture, particularly the role of technology and how you empower people, diversity, inclusion, competition.
Yeah.
Actually, an all-encompassing podcast. Thank you for your time, and I'm going to see you at the next awards we're holding in Wolverhampton, just down the road.
Yeah.
So until then, listen, have a great time, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Yeah.
Cheers,
Thanks
Neil.
a lot.